We got there, it's recorded, it's online. I thought I was gonna die more than twice. I arrived in Perth with like $9 on my bank account. Welcome to Soul Hugs. I'm Erna, I'm your host, and welcome to this very first podcast episode. And oh my god, you actually can't believe how long it took me to record the intro. If you haven't listened to the intro, please go back because it took me ages. But to be fair, it was probably also my perfectionism standing in my way and my high expectation on myself. From now on, it should all be a bit more chill. But yeah, it was so different. I'm used to speaking into a microphone. I'm used to talking to a camera as I do it on Instagram, but like everything together was such a different experience. And like all the setup feels so professional. Even if you would see my setup, it is not professional at all. But it does its job, so that's all we need. Let's jump into the episode. In today's episode, I will introduce myself just a bit more. We will go back to February 2022 when I actually started traveling. I went to Sri Lanka and I met a Swiss couple, and they told me that Australia just opened their borders and everyone who applies for a working holiday visa and arrives in Australia before, I think, the 19th of April, they will get the visa for free. So I was like, oh my god, fuck yeah, why not? But like, I didn't spend any more thought on that, and I flew back home. That was in March. It's like a key moment. I remember the situation. I was alone at home, and we had a hallway, and at the end of the hallway there was like a mirror. So I opened the door, saw myself walking in with the big suitcase, and I took a moment, looked in the mirror, and I was like, no, that's not it. That's not it. I had to organize what I want to do next anyways. So I was in a position where I was very flexible and spontaneous, which I very appreciate because I don't know how it would have been if I would have been in a different situation. The first feeling that came up was Australia. So before I even unpacked, I sit down on my laptop researching for the visa, and that's basically how I ended up in Australia. I applied for the visa, organized everything, and like I knew what to do, I knew what to organize. I thought about maybe going for an organization, but I was like, no, I don't want to pay that much money if I can organize and research everything by myself. After 4 weeks, I was on my way to Australia without knowing anyone, without having a plan. I took the flight, and even that I had no idea, it just felt right. And I don't know if anyone experienced that before. I really hope. But this feeling of not knowing what will be next, but just knowing that the feeling is the right one, it gives you so much security in all this insecurity. Yeah, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared or anything. I was just there, sitting there, knowing it is so right, and everything what will happen after, I will figure it out. There's always a solution. So I arrived in Adelaide, which was, to be fair, very uncommon, but because of my research, that made the most sense to me. So I chose Adelaide, and I arrived at the worst hostel in my life. I didn't even realize that until after, because I walked into this hostel, and you have to imagine it was my first time in a hostel ever as well. So I had no expectations, and that actually saved everything. It makes your life way easier. The hostel was a story for itself. But yeah, at some point I changed the hostel, and I met very, very lovely people. 4 people. They had such a big impact on how I basically started my journey. So after Adelaide, after a week, I flew up to Cairns and I started working and living there. And that's also where I started writing down how I feel. And I started sharing that on Instagram. So many people messaged me while I was doing it saying, they're so happy that I share this because they feel the same at the moment and they thought they were alone. It's in my heart, every single message, and it means so much to me. I can't even express it. And that basically kept me going to not be afraid to share how I feel and what I think and what I experience. So, and Cannes as well was such an important time. So many beautiful people, so many important people, so many lovely conversations and impactful conversations as well. And that's where I not necessarily found myself, because I knew myself pretty well before I left for Australia. I always knew, or like I knew before, that I'm highly sensitive, but I was never surrounded by people or like situations where I had to deep dive in my complexity of being myself, or like the way I am, knowing my capacity and knowing my limits, especially like with interacting with people and helping people and how much energy it takes and everything. So that was really eye-opening for myself. Even that I reach my capacity and my limits very often in Cairns, I still have the best memories. And after Cairns, I started my travels to Alice Springs, up to Darwin, from Darwin to Broome. And yeah, I went to WA. And the only reason why I went to WA was that I met so many people who got stuck somewhere along the East Coast and they've never seen the rest of Australia. And I was like, okay, I don't want to get stuck. I want to see the country. I'm here for a reason. So everyone I knew, everyone I met in Cairns went down along the East Coast. And the beautiful part about Australia and the East Coast is you meet everyone at some point again. It's like a big class and everyone like goes somewhere, and like it's basically like a small village, the whole East Coast. It's insane, but like the backpacker scene is so tiny, and you meet someone at least who knows someone you know. So it's like, it's just so wholesome. I don't know any other word to describe it, but yeah, I ignored that and I went to WA. I went to WA to feel freedom, like a different kind of freedom. I was longing for it and I thought I will find it in WA. So from Broome down to Perth, I found a relocation car and I did the whole West Coast by myself. And I'll tell you that I thought I was gonna die more than twice. I was like never in a really dangerous situation, but like, well, I kind of was. But I did not tell my mom. Probably. Did I told her? I don't know. But I definitely thought more than twice I'm gonna die, especially because I had no service. Western Australia was definitely an experience. I'm always down to do it, but I would never do it again on my own. And then I arrived in Perth with like $9 on my bank account. I found myself a job. Switched jobs actually very often, I think 3 or 4 times. So I could never settle. Everything in general, I had a tough time in Perth. Not because of Perth and also not because of the people. I've met the most beautiful people there as well. Franzi, das geht an dich. But somehow something was wrong and I tried to figure it out. All in all, it felt very unsettling. I tried to figure it out. By the end, I did, and it was alright. But before I left WA to Sydney, I went on a road trip with my friend. So we went on a road trip to Esperance, and Lucky Bay it was. I broke my elbow. I broke my elbow while I was skating. I went back to Perth, had surgery, and flew to Sydney for New Year's. Everything happened just right before Christmas, but I was still able to catch the flight to Sydney. It was approved and allowed by the doctors. New Year's in Sydney. I've done it once in my lifetime. I'm not too sure if I have to do it again, but it is really impressive. And then from Sydney to Melbourne, lived in Melbourne for a while, went to physio because like that was the main thing. I couldn't work for at least 3 months. So I had to chill and I had like 1 month left on my visa, and I had 1 month left to finish my 88 days. For everyone who doesn't know, the 88 days are like your visa days you have to do to be able to apply for second year. And then went from Melbourne to Hobart, and Nikki, much love to you at this point. Nikki let me live at her place so I don't have to spend money on rent. And I finished my visa days on the basically last day before I had to leave the country. That was basically my year in Australia. And then I flew from Hobart to Auckland to New Zealand, bought a car, traveled up north as I arrived in April. Expected me to sleep and live in my van, and it wasn't even a van, it was a Mitsubishi Dion. For everyone who please Google Mitsubishi Dion. But it was fine, it was completely fine. Honestly, traveling lowers your life standards. I was au pair for about 3 or 4 months, and then I started my travels through the country on the North Island and got stuck in Raglan. Lovely place, honestly. Raglan has my heart. I finished traveling the South Island and back to the North Island, back to Auckland, sold my car. That was basically my year in New Zealand, and I flew home in February and surprised all of my friends, all the people I met in my year in Australia, also in New Zealand, and spent the summer back in Germany because I needed another surgery for my elbow. That was basically the only reason I went back. It was so hard to adjust to this old life. You know that was your life, but it is not your life anymore because you broaden your horizons so much. You change your perspective so much, and the conversations you have with the people back home are not the same you used to have. All in all, my time back home was really challenging and very hard at the beginning for everyone, and I wrote about that a lot as well. I posted that on my Instagram and in my stories and everything. But in the end, I left my hometown with a full heart because I made the most and the best of it I could, and I'm very grateful for that. That's how I came to Canada, basically, and now I'm here. And we will have a lot to talk about, especially being here. I really look forward to those conversations, especially with guests. So stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you do. Maybe even a good night. And yeah, I will welcome you soon in my next episode.